Okay guys, so today I have my early first take on the Azamina White Forest deck profile with the new support announced in Supreme Darkness. So this is coming out in January for us. It's not that far away. And this is probably going to be around the time that we get the next ban list. So might come out right before or right after, probably around that time. We might get it in December, we might get it January, February, who knows. But it'll be around that time that we get the next ban list. However, it is worth mentioning for context that we will already have entered the Crossover Breakers format. Crossover Breakers is the Ryzeal and the Malice format, basically, and those are both shifter decks, and Ryzeal is also extremely good. So we might not be well positioned around Crossover Breakers format, to be honest, but you never know. You can cope every single ban list and hope that Shifter will finally be banned. And maybe this is the year that it actually happens because the best deck in all of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which will be Ryzeal, will be a deck that mains Shifter. In fact, the only reason that they don't play Shifter is if there's so many other Ryzeal or Malice matchups that it's not even useful anymore and they just put it in the side to cook everything that's not the mirror match or Malice. So maybe Shifter will be banned this time. Who knows? Okay, the main thing that you'll notice here is that there are no toy cards. And this is mainly because there are two reasons, really. So the first is when you get more good cards, so it's mainly this card, the Azamina Elzette of the White Forest, and you want to play more names, if you just cut down the number of like 3-ofs, you don't draw the combinations of cards you want to see as often, like obviously. And even though you can search individual names here, you do want to have enough monsters to play. Because like if you look at the deck, you know, this is like half spells. And you want to have monsters to play. You don't want to draw a hand of only spells, which you'll see in one of the replays I'm going to show you. And so I feel like you should just play all of the good cards. Rusia, I think in this version, is probably one of the worst White Forest cards. It is better with the toy stuff because you still could technically normal summon the Rusia and send the soldier or whatever, and you could get like some type of play off of that. But it's not as good here when you want to be sending like specific spells that you're searching or traps like Woes and Tails, or like a breaker if you're going first. And I also just wanted to see, what does the resource game look like if you're not playing the toy cards? But yeah, our space is so tight here that you barely have space for the breakers that you need to play. I am opting to main a called by here because I think that it's going to be good either side of the dice roll, especially because of the mulch armies and stuff like that. I think that it might be worth thinking about some like broken traps to have in the side deck for thrust, especially if you get shifted, like maybe a Daruma or something. This is not like a fully completed side deck right now. And then I also have the Jowgen that I was mentioning that is probably like useful to bring off of the Sinful Spoils of the White Forest, but this card is otherwise not resource efficient. However, what I have noticed is if you're relatively uninterrupted, you find that you're searching like a lot of stuff, and sometimes you want another name to search. And so I could see that you might want another Sinful Spoils card to search off of this. Yeah, because this searches a Sinful Spoils card and not an Azamina card. Anyhow, let's get into the gameplay. So I have 3 replays. Okay, so the first one is against, I think, Sky Striker. Otherwise, it was just playing a Sky Striker engine. So here, I have kind of like a normalish looking hand. Maybe, you know, if I'd drawn another spell, it would have been more statistically typical. So I send the Tails and I reset the Tails. And here I summon the Sylvie. I search for the Woes. And then I activate Tails and I search for the new card, which is the Azamina Elzette. So this is the one that you can reveal it in your hand, and then you can special summon a White Forest or Azamina monster from your hand, and that also includes itself. Then you can fusion summon in your main phase, but I think probably what's going to be more relevant and much more frequently used is if this card is sent to the grave as synchro material, you can add a Sinful Spoils card from your deck to your hand. And this is really what bridges the two engines now and gives actual synergy. So here, Deception of the Sinful Spoils is a Sinful Spoils card, so we can search it off of Azamina Elzette, and then we search whatever off of Arciela. Normally, if I'm going this uninterrupted, I will think that my opponent either has Nib or they're playing Breakers. And I'm not currently maining the Nib Veiler, which I still think is really good, and you can still make it in this version, just because there's like really little space in the extra deck at this point. So I just search in a Stellar here. Okay, so I reset the woes, I activate Deception, and I think Deception should probably be putting the Stellar in rotation since I can't normal summon it, and I've also used the Azamina Elzette already. Anyhow, so I bring out the Witch, and the Witch sets me a Wanted. I go and I make the Diabell, and really I'm not really sure what to do here because I feel like my opponent isn't doing anything. And so I just start like playing through my my resources, and I make the Omni, and then I just go for the super basic combo where you go into the Wave Viking Caesar. And I'm like, okay, so in the grave, I right click by accident and I do not reset the Deception in the end phase, but definitely don't do that because obviously if I was planning on not doing that, I would have just used the Wanted effect and banished it to shuffle this back and get a draw. So yeah. Okay, so my opponent activates Afterburners, and they target the Omni, and there's no need to like respond to this because, you know, like I could be turning talents live, and then he also has Lightning Storm. So I chain Diabell, and he actually negates the Diabell. Now there's not really much good to bring out to the Diabell at this point because there's nothing to synchro summon off of. But I'm like, okay. Now that triggers the Stellar though, and so the Stellar comes out, and then his Talents is live, which is what I wanted to play around. And he, I believe he drew 2, and then he also Raigeki'd me. So, Afterburner, Lightning Storm, Widow Anchor, Talents, and Raigeki so far. And now he goes for the multi-roll. But the cool thing about this deck, and this is one of the reasons that I always, in like all of my profiles, I try to explain why the Valor Nibs search combo is so good, and I feel like people don't really seem to care about it very much, is you don't want to go all into one particular place. You know, like this guy used all of these cards, and all these cards were targeting my monster zone. But I still have Woes, and now I also have something in the grave to make Woes actually live for the Synchro Summon, because I can shuffle back the Diabell or the Arciela to bring out the Sylvie. And so you'll see that I do that here so that I can bring out the Silvera, and I can book, and then this starts getting me into my resource cycle because now Elzette can be added back to hand here. So he, yeah, multi-rolls, and I'm like really confused here because, so I think I've seen this before actually. I think some people maybe topped with this at a regional where you have like this Tenpai engine, but I don't understand why he searched the Pydra. I wonder if this was like a misclick or what. He could have brought out Chandra and gone battle phase, damage step. He would have had to have brought out Fadra to protect it from battle, so it wouldn't have died. And then he could have attacked with Fadra and at least made like Bident or some other 7 or whatever. Or even if he wasn't doing any of that, he still could have got like made seals in main phase 2. So yeah, I don't know if this was a misclick or like what exactly was going on here. Maybe it was because he immediately surrenders after that dies, because this is the one that stops you from taking damage, but Fadra is the one that stops you from dying. Okay, then I play against Sharks. So this was actually insane, bro. And I think if I had properly read through all these cards, because like I hadn't read any of these cards, and I was like trying to read through all of them, and I couldn't remember every effect, maybe I would have had a chance. I don't know the cards well enough to say for sure if I would have won, but it was really close in the end. So he sets up, if you haven't seen Sharks before, they set up these pretty crazy boards if they're uninterrupted. Okay, what I wanted to show here is what happens if you don't draw a lot of monsters. How can the deck actually play? And I guess like technically if I had the toy box cards in here, it wouldn't necessarily have helped. I would have had to have been allowed to resolve box, for example, to have 2 stuff to send off with a droplet. Or if I'd drawn like Soldier, I would have set the Soldier, but that would only have searched me the box when it came back. So he has a rank up card for this one that will give him a monster negate, I believe. This card is kind of crazy because he has a way to trigger this where if an equipped card becomes equipped to a monster you control, you can attach a monster your opponent controls to this card as material. So this doesn't target, so you don't even know what he's going to be equipping. Then obviously he has the Toad, and then I don't really know what like else he's doing. So I'm like, okay, I have drawn Hallowed Azamina and Debtors, so these are both 1-ofs. And I'm thinking if I don't resolve both of these, there's no way that I win. Because like I'm not winning this game off of summoning one monster. So I need to be able to resolve both of these. And there's the secret technology, okay, of you being able to chain stuff to this. Like, you know, if you activate Hallowed Azamina and then you chain Wanted, the Wanted will search. And then because the cards remain on the field until the end of the chain, the Hallowed can still send the Wanted that has just searched. So I'm thinking I need to get max value out of this. So first I activate Deception and I'm like, okay, I have talents. I don't know when he's going to Toad. So let me see if he's going to do anything here or not. And then I guess he starts like ranking up and preparing his board or whatever. So here is the one that once per turn you can attach a material, target an effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects, and if you do, its attack becomes 0. Attack and defense becomes 0. And then he makes the Stealth Kraken. This card is quite insane. So all face-up monsters on the field become water. That actually is pretty relevant against me because what a lot of the boards that you build want to do is they want to have two bodies that ultimately go into Closed Heaven, but Closed Heaven will not be a light while this is on field, so you actually can't go into Requiem because Requiem requires a light fiend. So that's like a pretty good interaction against like anything that plays Fiend Smith, to be honest. And then also, during the main phase quick effect, you can destroy one water monster your opponent controls, and it also burns, and this one doesn't target either. So he has a non-targeting turn your thing into a material, a non-targeting pop, a targeting negate, and then an omni negate. And then I don't know if these back cards are known. So then he activates, what does this do now? So target a fish, Circle, Aqua you control and 2 cards your opponent controls, destroy them. So I'm like, okay, he wants to destroy cards that I control, but my fusions have to resolve. So I have no choice but to use everything all at once, which is honestly probably what like I knew had to happen anyhow, especially if I was going to get any value off of Droplet. The problem with Droplet here, though, is I can't actually just send everything I want because I need those cards to be on field to be fodder for the Hallowed Azamina and the Debtors. So like if I send the Wanted and the Deception, these cards have nothing to fuse off of. So yeah. I chain Droplet here and I send Hallowed, and I'm thinking like, okay, maybe this will be fine off of one negate. And maybe he won't Toad here. But maybe in hindsight, I should also just have sent the Debtors, and I still would have had both the Wanted and the Deception on field, and so that it would probably still like resolve fine, and I would get an additional negate. So maybe that was a mistake in hindsight that I made there. But anyhow, so I do get the 2 summons. And so I choose my chain links this way because I'm thinking I need the pop because I have to get rid of something. And I have talents in my hand, so maybe I can draw into 2 cards and actually be able to play. So I'll chain block my pop from the Toad because I don't think he's used the Toad yet. But then he does use the Toad on the Murcielago, and he pops. I don't actually know what he popped that with, but I'm not gonna go and check now. So then the Toad adds him back a card for follow up, which turns out to be like super relevant. Now I add back Hallowed Azamina from the grave because I have the monster in grave. And then I'm like, okay, I need the draw. So I banish Wanted from the draw. So now you can see like at this point already, like my card economy is not doing too badly, right? But I talents to draw 2 because I'm like, okay, I have doubles of which I have to get rid of a card to use. And like that would lose to a single negate like here. So I need more cards. I can't just take something. Or maybe I could have considered taking the this card, but then I would have had nothing to do after that. So yeah, I think I had to draw 2. So now I witch here, and I'm trying to see like what else he has left because I don't really need the witch to search anything. I've already used the cards that I would have gotten through the witch. I just really want my Elzette to be able to play. So now I'm like, okay, he can't negate this unless he has Ash in hand, which he doesn't because I know that he added back a Shark off of Toad. So it's finally safe to use my Elzette, and I search the Sylvie and I haven't normaled. So now I normal, and here's what I believe is the last interruption, which is the targeted negate. So he negates that, and I'm like, okay, at least I could make Silvera, and I could run over something, and then I could use this as a resource to do something else. So I go battle, I attack the big monster, I make the little knight, I banish his last card, and here's my mistake. So what I was thinking my options were is I either leave the little knight on field and I pass turn, and then when he does anything where he's trying to go into, like to a rank monster or whatever, then I SP and I banish, and then maybe he can't continue playing. What I thought was probably the better play, because I didn't know about the trap in the grave, is if I just bring back the Sylvie, I can just go into a closed heaven. But then he had this card with the grave effect, which I didn't read, where he can target a monster on the field and turn it into a water monster. So now my closed heaven is no longer a light fiend, it's a water fiend. And so I can't make Requiem, and now I have no other extensions. So I just have to pass turn. And then, so here is where I guess, like, if I had SP, I would have SP'd and hoped that he couldn't continue playing. But maybe he just had too much anyhow, and there was no way for me to win this. I'm not sure. And then he basically goes for like a huge OTK. So I lose this one. And then the last one that I wanted to show, and again, this is unranked, okay? Because these cards are have literally just been revealed. Also, he doesn't even have this yet. So I'm not gonna be, people don't have like meta decks and stuff for me to showcase this against right off the bat. So this is against Dogmatika. Honestly, the cards in this deck are not bad. Like this card, this Dogmatika Matrix. Oh wait, when he activates it, I'll show it. This card is actually crazy. When this card is activated, you can add a Dogmatika Ritual monster or a Dogmatika Ritual spell from your deck to your hand. Then if your opponent controls a monster, so this is flex on the dice roll, you can add one Dogmatika card from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, if you control a Dogmatika Ritual monster, you can look at either player's extra deck and send one monster from it to the graveyard. And you can only do that once per turn. But the real reason that you play this is because you're going to summon the big boss monster, the Alba Zoa. So this card, okay. So this says, Dogmatika monsters you control are unaffected by the activated effects of your opponent's Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, and Link monsters. During your main phase, you can make your opponent choose and apply one of these effects. So for every 2 cards in your extra deck, send 1 card from your hand or extra deck to the grave, or return all Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, and Link monsters you control to the extra deck. But because he's doing this going first, I don't have any Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, or Link monsters I control, so I have to do the first option. Now, I maybe should have just sent all of my White Forest cards, but I was thinking, okay, if I have to send the Fiendsmith cards, like I at least could get value off of having Engraver in the grave. Like I could ditch it off the Witch and I could shuffle something back. I don't know if this was like optimal, but yeah, so that's what I send. And then he searches the Maximus for the follow-up, and so I draw the Droplet. So I'd say I've drawn like a relatively typical ratio of cards here, aside from that I've drawn two of the same name. So here I pitch Engraver because I know that Engraver can bring itself out for free because of how I chose what I sent. And, then I would be able to get a pop off of Requiem. And I really just want to try to get my tuners, my White Forest tuners in the grave so that I can start cycling through these for free, basically, and try to use it more to my advantage that I've had to send the cards there. And also I'm waiting to see how he responds. So he activates Cartesia to fuse, and I don't actually know what this deck fuses into with the Cartesia. It's been a long time since I looked at these cards. So I'm just like, okay, I'm going to have to Droplet that. But also, I don't know what I'm supposed to do if his monsters are unaffected. So I'm like, I have to Droplet this too. But then this card, if a monster is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck, you can look at your opponent's extra deck and send one monster from it to the grave. And I'm thinking, okay, I probably can't afford that happening many more times. So I also have to negate that. So I'm like, okay, I got to negate 3. So anyhow, here I get the Wanted, and I now send the Wanted, hoping that maybe I can use this as like a draw resource at some point. I search for the Sylvie, and here is where I'm checking to see if there are any hand traps or not. I guess if he does like Ash or Veiler this or whatever, I can still link it into something, and then, like shuffle one of these back or something. But anyhow, he doesn't have it. And now I bring out the Engraver, and here I'm remembering that I can actually search Azamina Elzette. So I search Azamina Elzette with Tails, doing this in kind of a wonky order. I equip the Requiem, and I pop a card here, and now I make Chaos Angel because I just want the tuner in the grave. And I'm thinking I can run over his cards besides this one, because this can't be destroyed by battle by a monster summoned from the extra deck, so I banish that one. I bring out the Sylvie, so now it's just the Arciela that's in the grave, and I can special summon the Azamina Elzette from my hand, and that will allow me to search. So here I make the Silvera. I don't have anything to send, so there's, no reason for me to make Arciela, which is why I didn't shuffle that one back. But also, I don't want to proc this because this has 4,000 defense, so, and then it also would not be negated anymore when it was flipped back up. But I really just wanted to search. So I search for Deception, and then I Synchro into the Diabel to get back the thrust that I never got to use because I had to send out off of my droplets early when he was using the Cartesia effect. So now I thrust for talents because I'm thinking I'm not like confidently ahead in terms of resources, and so I just want to draw and continue winning that way. And then I end up drawing into Debtors, which means that I don't have to use Deception's effect. I can just Debtors and send the Deception to bring out Sol and continue picking apart the board. And also, this will help me climb in resources because in the standby I can add back an Azamina or Sinful Spoils card. So yeah, and then I pop the Dogmatika Matrix because I can't run over that, and I don't want him to have it. And then I go battle phase and I attack, and I set the droplet, and the Deception comes back. And I'm thinking, I can send the Deception off the droplet if I want, and I can save my monsters here. So then in the standby phase, the Sol triggers. So this one in the standby gets me back an Azamina or Sinful Spoils card. And was there another option? Maybe it was better to add back the Wanted because I can't use this in his turn anyhow. And this might have been better card economy in his, like if I kept it for the crackback or something. But yeah, so now he summons Ken, and I know that he's going to bring out Gen, and that will make me discard a card, but there's no reason to respond to this, especially because his deck may also be on talents. In fact, this is one of those decks that I think plays breakers, so he probably is on talents, and there's no reason for me to even respond to it anyhow, even if he wasn't on talents. It just wouldn't be effective. But this I absolutely cannot allow to resolve, so I droplet here, and fortunately, I have an extra resource now in the Gen, and so I negate that. And then I bring out the Silvera because I'm like, okay, if you're gonna... I don't want him to go into like Fleur and attack and get the effect to go to 3k and just like run over one of my monsters that I don't want him to run over. So I bring out the Silvera to force him to use... Because I was thinking that he was bringing this out to use a negate, to force him to negate the Silvera, otherwise they would get booked. But yeah, I guess at that point he realizes he has nothing else to push for, and then I win there. So... my current thoughts on this deck are, I think that it is probably correct to play the Fiendsmith stuff only because of Closed Heaven, like literally for no other reason. There probably isn't even space for like an actual Fiendsmith engine in the main deck. So I think the one engraver here is kind of where I've settled for now. And like some people are playing like one engraver, one Lurie, one tracked. And I don't know. I don't know if those ratios are worth it. The Lurie contributes to your normal summon. You will be using your normal summon. You don't want to draw it. The tracked, like, it's not necessary. I feel like you accept the fact that the engraver is a brick, but it doesn't break your combo because the Requiem can special from hand or deck. So yeah, I feel like that's probably the way to play. If you did want to play the larger Fiendsmith engine, possibly you could cut down on Deception. What I've noticed in this version is, unlike in previous versions where I would like often easily cycle through multiple of these, and so then I would have like one in the graveyard that would reset itself in the end phase, and then another one that I would be shuffling back to get a draw one. Just so far in my testing, that hasn't really happened, and I wonder if you could even play this with a single Deception. Now, Deception is obviously a very good card, so you might be wondering, why would you want to cut down on, the numbers of high quality cards in here? But actually, it feels better to search this than to hard draw it and be tributing a monster. It feels more resource efficient if you get to it by searching, especially off of this card. And this also gives you opportunities for chain blocking. So, if you're thinking about like Ash and that type of stuff, when this goes to the graveyard, like they cannot imperm or Veiler the graveyard effect. So, what you often might be doing is you would be making like an Arciela off of this and a Sylvie, for example. And they can't imperm or Veiler the Azamina Elzette because it's in the grave. And then, so if you want to chain block the Ash, you can just have this chain link 1, Arciela chain link 2. And then that basically guarantees that you get to the Deception. So I feel like it's pretty safe actually getting to the Deception here. But I don't know, it needs a little bit more testing for this particular thing. It may seem like a weird thing to harp on, but I do think it actually matters if you are able to cycle through multiple of these or not, because the difference could be +1 card in your hand in the end phase or not, you know, because of the wanted shuffle back versus setting it. Other thing is that I do believe that Debtors is probably better than where is it? The Sinful Spoils of the White Forest. Where is that card? Am I blind? Here it is. It's just because the artwork is not in yet. I don't know if I'm really convinced about this card so far. I feel like the Guardian Chimera play is just like way too expensive with resources. It's just like I don't know. And then like if you get ashed on it, you've used your whole field, especially if you were hoping to draw 2, and you wouldn't even be on a hand trap build because there's not really space for it. I mean, maybe you could change it if you were cutting Deception down to 1. Maybe if you weren't playing the Fiendsmith stuff, maybe you could play it to where you have like 15-ish hand traps and you could be playing Guardian Chimera and stuff. But like, I don't know. It just seems kind of risky and maybe not worth it. So I still think that this is probably best for the Jaugen griefing play, basically, where you're siding and you go first and you search the Jaugen off of Arciela, which again, you can chain block that either way. And then, you know, Sinful Spoils of the White Forest, you bring out the Jaugen on their turn, so you don't have to use your normal summon for it, and you can, you know, wait until they use their breaker or whatever. Yeah, I don't know, but if you guys like disagree with that, let me know in the comments if you have any other ideas of how to use it, or if you think this should be in the main deck. This is another card that I feel like could be good because it's a Sinful Spoils card, but this one, there's no like real resource cost. Target a face-up special summon monster on the field, change it to face-down defense position. Like, pretty simple. And then if you control a level 5 or higher illusion monster while this card is in your grave, you can set it but banish it when it leaves the field. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't reset itself because it's not a White Forest card, but it does get to set itself by its own effect. And I feel like that's pretty easy, having a level 5 or higher illusion monster, because both Murcielago and Ilya Sylvia and Sol are all illusions, and then the DL is obviously also an illusion. So that part is fine, and then there's no resource cost for the first one. The problem is because it's a trap, you can't really main it, or it's risky to main it because if you go second, it's a brick. And actually, if you go first, you don't want to draw it either because it's just not efficient with your resources, and you're more likely to lose if you get hand trapped, rather than if you had more gas and got to it by searching. But so yeah, I think that's also like a solid card. It depends on the decks that are being played. And I do think that you probably have to play breakers. I would kind of guess that if you wanted to play a hand trap build, so let's say this entire bottom row is taken out, that's 10 cards, 11, 12 with the other thrust and the call by, 13, 14, 15 is kind of where you need to get to. Maybe you could put the hat trick in the side, but then you really have to be on the Fiendsmith stuff. Like, it's not acceptable if you're not on Fiendsmith that you don't have Rabbit as an option for when you go first. You could take out the Engraver, again, if you're not on the Fiendsmith stuff, and then you're like almost at 15, and you could definitely cut Deception to 2 and play 15 hand traps. So like, it's not impossible. I just feel like breakers feel like they make more sense with this deck. You're less likely to have awkward hands full of monsters. So yeah, this is my first take. I'll do some more testing, but I also want to cover the current format, or the format that's starting tomorrow with Rage of the Abyss. So, thanks for watching.